maybe we should just run the wild dog and let James Cook be the quarterback. Couldn't hurt.
That's what I said. Like throw a running back back there, an extra running back, or throw an extra lineman out there, and let's get after it.
Welcome to My Gotta Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, my co-host John Powell and I review what went down against the Gators on Saturday. But before we get to that, as always, remember that you can follow us on social media at My Gotta Podcast. And a quick note, we're now available on Spotify. I know we had at least one listener looking for the show there. So Carter Powell, I hope it's easier for you to listen to your dad's podcast now. All right, let's join the conversation in progress. Have you rewatched any of the game yet, or are you going off of just watching live?
No, I did not rewatch it. I'm not going to.
Yeah. I started making like my YouTube cut, this morning. So I watched a little bit while I was doing that. I basically watched like the Zamir White touchdown, the 3 and out, and then I watched until it was 14-7, kind of fast forwarding through it.
Yeah.
And I mean, to me, like, it's crazy how much I've never seen a game turn on one play so much that was like a touchdown for your team. I mean, we throw the touchdown pass to go up 14-0, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. I can't believe like we're playing so well. And then Rosemary Jack Saint and horrible. I mean, like prayers for him, wish him a speedy recovery. But I mean, I wish CBS they showed it way too many times.
They did. You could hear Brad Nessler. He was like, I don't know that we want to show this again.
Right. I mean, I get it because like it was under review and like they reviewed to see if it was a touchdown or not. So they were trying to show that, but it happened simultaneously. So you couldn't look at one without the other. So they finally stopped showing it. But so we get that, and Bennett gets hurt on the same play, and he wasn't the same after that. And I think we now know it was a sprained AC joint. And then right after that, on Florida's drive, like the downpour, like the sky opens up, absolute downpour of rain, and then it was a different game from that point on. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. It turn on a positive play like that. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the same boat. I mean, we were going nuts around I had the game on outside. Some neighbors and I were like just yelling and screaming. My daughter was making fun of me, and it was just like, I mean, I couldn't believe how well we were doing in running the offense. And then all of a sudden, like you said, it kind of turned. And then, the next series, I think that we had the ball, we like started throwing it, and you and I were texting like, why are we throwing on first down? Like, it just doesn't make any sense when they literally couldn't stop anything on the ground.
Yeah.
And then, later in the game, I mean, in our preview, and I'm sure we're going to go over this, but like,
okay. So what I was going to say is when you said like, we said in our preview, that's where I lost you. Sorry. Like it just got kind of like pixelated. The only thing I'll say is you were saying something about throwing 3 interceptions, which I know like Bennett actually only had 1, and then it was Mathis had 2, just if that's for whatever you were saying. Sorry.
Yeah. We had 3 interceptions in the game. Like if you throw 3 interceptions, you're not going to beat a team like Florida.
Right.
Had Mark, and the crazy thing was that it felt like we were getting our butts whooped, and for all intents and purposes we did, but it still was a ball game. Had Mark Webb actually come down with that interception, like that was an easy pick 6, and we're talking about a totally different ball game at that point.
I still can't believe that either. That it was still a game at that point. Because, I mean, it was. And then, he gets a pick 6, and we're in the game. I mean, that it is it doesn't really make sense that was the case, but it was. I mean, I guess because at that point, like, we lost, Scene, and they lost Pitts, on that huge collision in the first half. And I mean, their offense definitely missed him, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they showed a stat of the first half total yards and the second half total yards, which some of that was them grinding the clock, but it was a totally different game in the second half defensively. And, I think you and I were messaging towards the end when, Florida had a chance to ice the game with a field goal. And for whatever reason, Mullen went for it on fourth down. And you and I were like, did he just give us life? Like, I mean, because if our offense could have like gotten it together, there was still like 5 or 6 minutes on the clock when that happened. And,
Yeah.
A competent 2-minute offense could put you in striking distance of, an onside kick or something, I don't know.
Right. And their kicker is really good too. I mean, that one that he missed was a pretty long one. That 50-yarder he made would have been good from 60. Like that didn't make sense to me either. And like when that happened, I was thinking again back to something you said in the preview, just around kind of thinking around Mullen like making a bad decision that could cost them. And I thought that was going to be it, or I thought that could have been it. Right. That I mean, it did. It gave us life
Yeah.
when the game really he should have ended it right there. And for whatever reason didn't open the back door for us, or the door back up for us, but then we just couldn't take advantage of it. I mean, I don't
There
know.
were there were some other like questionable Mullen calls. Like why the heck Emory Jones ever saw the field unless it was mop up duty is kind of crazy to me. But
Yeah, agreed.
like why would you take a guy off that's absolutely torching Georgia? Like why would you take him off the field just so that Emory Jones can run an off tackle or whatever?
I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me either. And like, actually, Kim asked me the same thing. So my wife, like, we were talking about that, and she was like, "Why is Trask out of the game?" And I didn't really have a good answer, other than it's like maybe they're trying to keep Emory Jones from transferring. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense
Yeah,
to me.
that's what came to
But
that's what came to my mind was they're Justin Fieldsing him.
right. Which is, I mean, it's funny to bring that up, right? I mean, like in 18. Georgia, Florida, like Fromm had a great game, and I think that was one of the few games that Fields didn't even take a snap in. I don't know. Sometimes I guess whatever. I guess that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
um, I don't know. To me, like I still feel like we talked about, like hopefully we would have learned from Alabama, and I kept saying that I thought the game plan was going to be that we were going to lean on Zamir White, and we did for all of one play. And man, that play was glorious.
Oh
But
man.
at halftime of the game, Zamir White had 3 carries for 76 yards. James Cook had 2 carries. Burton had 2 carries. Milton 0 carries. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. And I think my tweet during the game was, once we went down, once Florida took the lead, at that point we had already abandoned the run, and kind of it seemed like almost I don't know if saying panic is the right thing, because again, like just like Alabama, I guess it wasn't even really an abandonment of the run. It was once again never committed to it.
Yeah, and this might be a jumping off point for us to, because I know that you got things to say about the overall game plan, and you and I and Graham Coffee we were messaging after the game, and I went and found the rushing stats because I had to like see for myself just for the numbers, because it felt like watching the game, and it felt like that we just didn't do anything with the rushing attack after,
Yeah.
like you said, the first play. And
Right.
it is absolutely criminal what we are doing to the running back core right now. And that's all. I'll jump into my piece, but I do want to give you, because I know that you were very passionate about the game plan. So let's talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, basically, like this. Okay. So we're coming into a game with an already depleted defense. The thing that scared me the most about Florida, we talked about it, was that they came in averaging whatever it was, 42 points a game, and I said we're not going to score 43. And I mean, we definitely didn't. And that against Alabama, it felt like we signed up for a check meet. And it felt like we did it again. Like it felt like we were trying to do this quick strike. I mean, not that they 100% were like, "Hey, this first play is going to be a 75-yard rushing touchdown." I mean, I guess you always hope that, or that's the design of the play. But like that was a great play. Never saw that. Never once went back to that formation again. That I thought was interesting. And then I don't know. Like we again, first half. So total first half carries outside of Stetson Bennett were 7. total first half running back carries were 5. Zamir White had 3 carries. James Cook had 2 carries. That was it in the first half. When the first play of the game, you broke off a 75-yard touchdown run. Like, to me, like I said, again, I'll repeat some of my tweets that it was criminal and that it was coaching malpractice. And I've seen, a friend of the show, George Foster, on Twitter basically saying the same thing.
I do know that was it him or was it another Georgia alum that said that we were going to get wheel routed to death?
I can't remember who that was, but I did see it.
Yeah.
He was pretty vocal. Terrence Edwards was pretty vocal. Isaac Nada, I don't know if you saw, he chimed in and said, now that I'm on the other side, I understand what it feels like to be a Georgia fan. Like, I get it now. So I thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, you've got a depleted defense. With the way Florida plays offense, we could not leave the defense out of the field. We needed to keep our defense off the field with long, sustained drives. Exactly. And it felt like we didn't. And it's not even that we felt like we did not try to do that. Other than, who knows what the first scripted drive was, because the first play worked so well that it turned into a 75-yard touchdown. But again, after that, and especially when your quarterback gets hurt on a touchdown pass, and then we come back out throwing. And what if we said the only thing that is kind of detrimental, and I can't bring myself to do it, and I'm just going to leave it to hopefully Battle Hymnal. Hopefully those guys will look at this, because one of the things we texted, like, on all those overthrows, there were so many overthrows and both quarterbacks did it, where, either the guy was, some they were wide open, so you can't say they made the run read. Some there was a tight coverage and it didn't work and it was still overthrown. But I wonder, was there someone coming across the middle wide open on a check down on those plays? So I'm curious to see. But again, and I guess my thing comes to, and again, just like Alabama game, like, I can sit here and say, we should have run the ball. We should have played ball control. The counterpoint to that is, well, Monken schemed guys open. There were receivers open. The quarterback couldn't hit them. At this point, I mean, we know that we don't have a quarterback that can hit those guys. It's back to play to your strength. You have to call plays, and Seth Emerson had this in his article today. Essentially, that you have to call plays that your players are capable of executing. And I feel like we're calling plays that our guys just can't do. And again, maybe it's working in practice, but we're 6 games in and it's not working. We can't do those things on the field.
Yeah, so that's what you and I were talking about, was like, on the one hand, and I think I sent a tweet out like this during the game, was that I felt like that we were no longer wasting an elite defense. We're actually wasting an elite offensive coordinator because we don't have a quarterback to execute it. Now, the flip side of that is that an elite offensive coordinator should be able to figure out putting your players in the best possible position to succeed. And exactly. like you said, hey, you know what? There was progression. I actually did see Stetson pass to some checkdowns with some success. I didn't see any batted balls. What I didn't see was moving the pocket all that much. I mean, I did see a little bit of rollout with Stetson. He couldn't hit the broad side of the barn. Apologies to Stetson, but like, it is what it is at this point.
It is, and he was hurt, right? I think we can't forget that. Like, he was not the same guy after that hit on the second drive, on the touchdown pass, right? He was not the same guy after he came back.
Which, when we're talking about this game in context, like, let's just take a step back and look at that. So all along, Kirby Smart has said that Stetson gives us the best opportunity to win football games. That means that he is the best option to run the offense that we have. Right. When he got hurt, that means that an injured Stetson Bennett is still the best option for us at quarterback, until it became abundantly obvious that he just was not going to be he just wasn't going to get the job done. And so we moved to Mathis, almost after it was too late, to be honest with you. I think you had mentioned to me that you thought that we were going to try out Mathis to begin the second half. Stuff like that, where it was just like, come on, Kirby, we need something different. This just isn't working. We need a Jalen Hurts moment right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was just like Mathis in the first game, really, right? I mean, other than Mathis, for some reason, had a much shorter leash. Like, I feel like you can't sit there and totally fault Stetson Bennett on everything. guys were dropping passes. The good passes that he did make were dropped. Like case in point, I think opening drive the second half, the pass that hit Fitzpatrick in the hands and he dropped. I mean, that was just a huge blow. That could have been a big spark. But again, that happened to Mathis too against Arkansas. I mean, no one was helping him out in the first half, and he got pulled. Like sometimes you just have to make a change. You have to make a spark. You need a spark. And again, I mean, they did it, but like you said, I think it was too late at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mentioned this to you, after Mathis threw an interception, I think it was his first interception. He came off the field. You could see Kirby trying to coach him up a little bit here and there. And I don't know, every time that he takes his helmet off and the camera's panned to him on the sideline, he just doesn't look all there, man. And I don't know that that's necessarily fair, but that's just my personal gut instinct reaction, is that he just doesn't seem all the way there. And when he's throwing the ball, when he's moving around, he's just not there. And that's the situation that we find ourselves in, is that literally the best option that we have at quarterback is a guy that is physically limited, a guy that's physically gifted, but is just not making the right decisions. Where it ended for me, and I mentioned this to you and Graham on our little message chain, but where it ended for me and where I have absolutely no hope of the quarterback room was that they subbed in Mathis. They subbed in Mathis for Bennett, who just clearly wasn't getting the job done, was hurt, whatever, however you want to explain it away. And then Mathis comes in. And then on one of the plays, I think it was second and fairly medium. And he took it and ran it out of bounds and made it a 3rd and long situation as opposed to throwing the ball away. To me, that's where I lost the quarterback room. And for good. Yeah. I have absolutely no confidence that we have anybody on the team that can run this offense. And that means that moving forward, we need to just run the ball. And I mean run the ball. Figure out ways to option guys out. We don't even need a quarterback. Put Zamir White out there, put whoever out there, and just have another running back on the field, and let's just run triple option.
I mean, seriously. So that's where I think that, again, full admission on text messages sent. I sent to you, I felt like Kirby made a mistake in pulling Mathis from the Arkansas game, that we would have won that game anyway, and should have let him get through it. Arkansas was better than we thought they were. Would have pulled that out. Probably still have the same record at this point, and he would have had more in-game experience to grow. That was when he first came in after he led that touchdown drive, his first drive of the second half. So obviously things took a turn after that. I would say, though, to your point, though, of what you just said of run the ball, Mathis is just as capable of handing the ball off as Stetson is, and he can do more with his legs if he keeps it. I mean, I would go. I agree. I mean, should just run zone read every play and do like Vince Young at Texas in the mid 2000s, right? Do that, and then if he's going to pass, let him drop back, look for the first read. If it isn't there, run. I actually felt like I actually was yelling at the TV several times last night that I felt like he needed to be running. Like when he drops back to pass, I mean, the guy is fast. I mean, yeah, he's got a great stride. Look for your first read. If it isn't there, tuck it and run. I feel like that would be more effective than what we're seeing. So I don't know. Yeah, we definitely have to make a big picture decision, because unless something crazy happens, the East is out of reach, right? I mean, Florida has to lose twice. It's 2020. It's a crazy year. It's not totally out of the realm of possibility, but I'm definitely not counting on that. At this point, it's more honestly, for pride, play well, hopefully get a decent bowl game. Vandegrift is coming next year. So I don't know. You're hopefully kind of you would like to take the rest of this year to kind of groom the next quarterback, but he's in high school. So.
Well, and I think I mentioned this to you. I do believe that at some point we need to figure out what we have in the quarterback room. We haven't seen Carson Beck in game situations. I mean, some of the feedback I've heard is that, obviously they don't think that he's as good as Mathis, because otherwise he'd probably be out there. But, he also hasn't been put in a game situation like these other two quarterbacks have.
Right.
See what he can do. I mean, like you mentioned with Mathis, the only thing that concerns me about Mathis is his decision making.
Yeah.
The decision to run out of bounds, the decision not to throw it away, the decision earlier in the season where he refused to go for the first down twice.
Yeah.
And then like you said, there were multiple times when he would drop back and clearly was looking for options, either didn't see them or hesitated, and he could have taken off, but he didn't. He just held onto the ball and caused some sacks that killed clock for us late in the game when we were trying to come back, which, had Mark Webb intercepted that ball, I feel like it would have just given us false hope, because I don't think that our offense could have gotten it together to figure it out to come back on something like that.
You're right. I mean, I agree. Unless we had run student body left with Zamir White again, maybe that would have been our only chance.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know.
Yeah. I just think that Monken has coached his brains off, because last year we couldn't get any wide receivers open. This year we've got wide receivers open literally all over the field every single game. And we just don't have anybody to do it. And that's got to be absolutely infuriating, because on the one hand, on a coaching side of things, and this is kind of goes to, maybe they're seeing it in practice and, they're like, well, let's try it out. And then the game comes and they crap the bed. Maybe that speaks to our defense's pass defense, because the quarterbacks are playing against the first team defense. Obviously Kyle Trask picked us apart. Maybe it speaks to how weak our pass defense truly is. But either way, like, you got to absorb the game day information and say, okay, we've had about 4 games that, to my mind, where we've had very clear evidence that the quarterback struggles hitting open receivers. So as a coach, you have to correct for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I feel like he needs to, I don't know. Yeah, it feels like the game plan at this point doesn't match personnel. It seems like they're not capable of doing it. I don't know. I mean, to me, if you're going to stick with Mathis, maybe either go to Mathis, simplify the offense. I don't know. I guess I don't really know what I'm talking about, but that's what I would do. Simplify it, hand the ball off, a lot of zone read. Maybe first read, second read isn't their run. I don't know. That's what I would do, but what do I know? A little. I mean, so you talked about the defense a bit. I mean, are we? I kind of gave them a pass against Alabama because I felt like the offensive game plan put us into a track meet and they wore down. This one, now that's happened twice, I don't know. Is the defense not as good as we thought? Although, I mean, I guess we can't discount the injuries. And Kirby Smart even said we can't use injuries as an excuse. I'm not going to do that. But man, I mean, no account. Jordan Davis did make the trip. We were kind of holding out hope that he would have been there. He wasn't. Then Scene goes out. Monty Rice is not 100%. I don't think Quay Walker is either. So I don't know. The injuries are mounting. So that definitely played a part of it. But still, schematically, I mean, when Florida runs a wheel route and we've got Jermaine Johnson in coverage one-on-one and a running back, I mean, that's a mismatch. That stuff was schemed. I feel like Mullen because I don't even know. I'm blanking on Florida's offensive coordinator. I mean, I feel like it's Mullen's offense. He out-schemed Dan Lanning and Kirby Smart yesterday.
So, yeah, I mean, to an extent, obviously the first half, which frankly, we talked about it, the quick strikes that we had were not helpful to the defense, quite frankly. Like you said, we have to have sustained drives. I think Florida ran 80 something plays. I mean, a lot of those were just straight bombs, which is not necessarily accounted for in the number of plays, but it is accounted for in the amount of running that our team is doing all over the field, trying to chase down these guys. Our defense was gas. I mentioned that to you. I was like, my only worry is that we're going to end up having to defend all these different plays, from every single one of Kyle Trask's pass. I do think that the defense was gassed. I think they're decimated by injury, and very clearly, the injury that I was most worried about was Jordan Davis. We almost got to Trask multiple times, And some of that was due to the speed of our defensive ends. Had Jordan Davis been 100% and in that game, I feel like we would have gotten to Trask multiple times because Jordan Davis commands multiple defenders to keep him, and he eats up space in the middle of the line. So it gave a little freedom. I'm curious. I was going to ask you about this because, frankly, I didn't watch the replay. I didn't look at the specific line items, but was Adam Anderson in all that much?
So yeah, because we talked about him like this was his game. I don't know. I looked at the participation chart and he did play. I haven't looked at like the defensive statistics, but it was one of those things where I would say I didn't really notice him, I guess, and it sounds like you didn't either.
Right. And see, it's stuff like that. Like if you can absorb another defender, it frees up a guy like Adam Anderson to be one-on-one or whatever. So like, I do think that we did their offensive line, and hats off to their offensive line. I mean, Trask, yeah, we got pressure to him a lot, but like he never got sacked. He barely broke a sweat running around. And even when he seemed like he always ended up hitting someone wide open. So,
well, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know, like story of the game, right? Like their first touchdown, we actually got to Trask. He fumbled the ball but like caught it instantly and then throws a touchdown pass. Didn't even have the laces in his hand. I mean, it was kind of summed up the day right there.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. And, the broadcasters, Nestler and Danielson, were talking about this. We missed leadership. And I think that was something that has actually come up. Like someone's got to step up on the defensive side from a leadership standpoint. But I actually do believe that they have leadership. LeCount, he's quarterbacking the defensive side of things, making calls. He obviously wasn't a factor in the game. I was really excited when Seen stepped out on the field this week. So losing him is another leader that has a lot of experience out there. Monty Rice, when he wasn't in the game, obviously wasn't able to quarterback things. And then, Jordan Davis and Julian Rochester on the defensive line. Like, I mean, we just talked about 4 studs right there that were just not part of the game. And I do believe that had they been in the game, it would have been different from a defensive side of things. And I don't want to lean on it because we recruit for a reason, but you also don't have these consistent starters that play almost every single down for no reason, even when you have the talent coming in behind them, because they're just not good enough. So,
yeah. Well, so I asked you that question like open-ended because I wanted to see if your thought process was like mine, and as usual, we agree. So I mean, like to me, like I can't remember a rash of injuries like this on one side of the ball since 2013. This happened on the offense. Remember, like in Tennessee, like everyone got, like the whole world got hurt. In that game, that was like Keith Marshall blew out his knee after Gurley was already hurt, and then we had, I think, like 2 receivers got hurt in that game. It was just like crazy. Like that year we had that on the offense. It was like this year we're having the same thing on the defense. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. We did sack Trask once. I'll say that. We sacked him once, and Adam Anderson had an assistant tackle. That's how he showed up in the stat line. And so the other thing that we talked about was like the team with the most rushing yards has won 14 years in a row, or had won. So we actually did. So that streak was basically broken because we did rush for more yards, and Florida still won the game. So they didn't fill up the stat line running the ball. They only had 97 yards rushing for the game, but I felt like I was actually impressed and surprised by their running game. But I think that comes back to Jordan Davis really missing him, plugging up, taking up multiple defenders in the run game as well. Because I felt like like not crazy stats, but that's because their passing is so good. But they were able to run and kind of at will, honestly. I mean, I don't know, like at will, but I don't know. Their running game was plenty good enough to keep us honest. I guess that's the way I would say it.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, I think they had 60 something yards rushing or something like that.
No, they had 97 yards rushing.
97. Yeah, I mean, so they didn't break 100, and we had 170, 160?
Yeah. 160. We had 165. They had 97. But again, 75 of our yards were on the first play of the game.
That is some damn stats lie.
Yeah. Yeah. So go ahead.
I'm going to wrap a bow around the injuries thing with a conspiracy theory that I read on Twitter.
Okay, let's hear it.
All right, so I read it on the internet. So, and I don't
Obviously
even know.
it's true.
So, one of the Alabama guys that I follow was saying that Scott Cochran is on Georgia's team, and they're getting absolutely decimated by injuries. Last year, we were decimated by injuries, and I don't know how valid that is, but that's what they were saying. Like, Alabama was decimated by injuries last year, and Georgia's now decimated by injuries this year, and they're just blaming Scott Cochran.
Yeah, I mean, so what I was saying was like, I feel like that would kind of that makes sense for them because you can kind of blame that stuff on the strength coach, but he's not our strength coach, so I feel like that doesn't hold as well. But it's a nice conspiracy theory from a Bama fan. I thought you were going to say that you read something about Pickens, which because there were rumors swirling that like. The one I saw was that he's not injured. It's grades or something, which doesn't really make sense in the middle of a semester. So I don't think there's any. I wouldn't think there's any truth to that. I mean, who knows? But there's another guy that we didn't have that we hoped we would. Right? No Pickens. Then Rosemary Jack Saint goes out. Also McIntosh, I don't believe played. I know he was there, but I didn't see him on the field. From what I can recall.
I don't know. I feel like if Pickens. If he's out because of grades, it must be pretty egregious, is what I'm saying. I'll just say that because I feel like Kirby Smart would figure out a way to get him on the field. That's just where he comes from.
Right. Yep. All right. I guess the only other thing, or another thing, I guess. I mean, the special teams weren't as special. The return game continues to be good, and we totally wasted that great kickoff return that. Akira's Jackson had. But then, man, I mean, picked a bad time to start shaking punts. that the Shanks punt at the end of the first half, and then Florida comes down and gets a touchdown. I mean, that kind of sealed it, honestly, right there. Like you said, we had some kind of false hope late, or would have had false hope had Mark Webb had a pick six. But I mean, the game was pretty much over by halftime with that last touchdown. I don't know.
Yeah, that was not pretty. He had a couple of them that were kind of. I think he had one that was just kind of like, and then another one that was just backbreaking at the end of the half. Like that was just like, oh man, this is just not our day. When our Ray guy, potential kicker, and then he goes on the other side of things and has like an amazing punt that for whatever reason Toomey picked it up, like caught it. And decided to try to run around. I thought he was going to get killed.
Yeah, of all the things that we did, like we did a good job on him. Like remember, like in their preview, I was worried about him. I'll say we did it. I felt like we handled him pretty well. There were some missed tackles, like we talked about. Like how much they get, like yards after catch, yards after contact. Yeah, we did a decent job. Like after all the injuries hit. I mean, then we started missing some tackles like later. But early on, I think the tackling was decent. I don't know. They went over the top more than I was anticipating. Like they actually kind of did almost more like what Alabama does. I felt like what they did against us wasn't exactly what we've seen. I mean, they definitely had those drag routes, a lot of crossing routes. I would say there were some pick plays that didn't get called, but whatever. I mean, they were clearly the better team. Like,
man,
I'm not. But there were some, especially in the first half.
Yeah, like that was something that stuck out to me. It almost seemed like that was like a strategy that they were employing. That was the only way that they were able to get open early, and then they started going over the top or whatever. Like otherwise, like we had plays covered. We had guys like, I mean, the pick plays were just insane.
The comeback was those quick 14 points. The comeback was built on offensive pass interference, but again, whatever. Like, they were clearly better.
Yeah, and then Pitts. I can't remember if it was a long touchdown or what. Like the one where I think it was a touchdown. I think it was Stevenson. I'm not sure who the defensive back was that was on it. Fell down. Like he turned around to try to catch the ball and fell down. Like
Yeah.
I actually thought that he had an opportunity to intercept that ball had he not fallen
Oh
down.
yeah. That was the one where we saw Eric Kirby on the sideline in the replay on
Eric,
broadcast, right behind
yeah,
him, right?
and
Yeah.
you could tell it. It was almost like he kind of anticipated. It was like, this is what we waited for. This is what we wanted. We wanted them to throw it deep, and he was just waiting for it to happen. And then as soon as he turned around, his right foot slipped as he was turning around and just fell down. And basically, Pitts had an uncontested catch, even though it looked like Pitts had like shook him off or whatever. He literally just slipped.
Yeah. That was one of those where I was like yelling at the TV, offensive pass interference, on first look. Obviously, it wasn't. Like, yeah, Stevenson just slipped. It was not a push off or anything.
There was one.
Yeah, it
There
was
was
tough.
one. There was one that was a push off that they had a long gain on. I think Danielson called it. He said, "Oh, he got lucky on that one."
Yeah, that was their first touchdown drive. That was like during the rain downpour, actually, I think. That brief downpour of rain, that was during that when that happened.
Right.
Well, I guess I don't know, I guess kind of macro sense, like what stinks is it's the first time since 2016 that we found ourselves not in control of our destination, as we would say, being Atlanta. So I don't know. We're gonna see how we respond. I don't know any like kind of macro sense season thoughts from you.
All right. So the macro stats. I mentioned this to you. So SEC StatCat did a huge dump like the morning of the game. I feel like, or maybe I just saw it the morning of. I can't remember when exactly they tweeted it out, but they put a bunch of stats out, offensive and defensive, and one of the things that they said was, James Cook was actually one of the most like statistically success rate, based running backs that we have. And I feel like that he's the running back that has gotten one of the least amounts of carries of all of the running backs, particularly out of the zone read, like the zone look.
Yeah.
He had like a 70% success rate out of the zone look. I I feel like that they have to know that, right? Like, is it just that they don't feel like he's holding onto the ball or can secure it or what? But like, we need to be giving and figuring out more ways to get James Cook the ball. And frankly, if we never throw a ball to Kendall Milton again, I'll be happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
he needs to work on his hands. Yeah, that. Yeah, we've seen it back-to-back games now.
God bless.
If it's not like if it's not hitting him in the numbers, when he has to extend, it doesn't look great.
God bless him. He's going to be an absolute monster as he continues to grow and get stronger and develop his skills. But right now, we don't need to be throwing passes to Kendall Milton. Just
yeah. Which, by the way, he went down. Did see his dad tweeted like slight meniscus tear. Sounds like he's going to be okay. So that's good.
That doesn't give me the warm fuzzies.
Well, that's where I don't know. Like the offense, we're just going to see. I mean, basically, to me, it all boils down to who's going to play quarterback. I mean, honestly, I don't think any of the options are great. And I think like we're basically just staring down the reality of the guy who was supposed to be quarterback is carrying a clipboard for the Buffalo Bills and Jake Fromm. The backup plan, Jamie Newman, opted out. And we probably don't talk about that enough. And my big gripe with him that I know we've texted about was if he didn't come here, maybe we would have De'Aaron King because he wasn't on the transfer market yet. We go get Jamie Newman, who was he's the guy that everyone wanted, right? Like he was the hottest guy on the transfer market. We get him. And then after that happened, then De'Aaron King says he's going to transfer. So I don't know. I would take him over anyone we're playing right now, I would say. So that stinks. I mean, the Jamie Newman opt out really, really killed us. Like it really hurt. It really hurt this team.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I mean, I feel like if we can get, I don't know of these defensive guys, like who's going to come back healthy. We're not going to see an offense like Alabama, like Florida again the rest of the season. So we've just got to, I don't know, keep their head up, keep chopping, and get through this. And I don't know. I mean, you just got to compete, got to play Georgia football, right?
I don't know. We may not see an offense, but we're going to see better defenses, unfortunately.
Yeah.
from a statistical standpoint. So the offense, doesn't Missouri have a tougher defense than Florida?
I think so. Although the only other thing there is like Kentucky's was actually pretty good, right? I mean, because Kentucky's was better than Florida. Although I guess that kind of proves in the stats, right? We scored twice as much on Florida as we did on Kentucky. So I don't know, maybe that's about right.
Yeah, and then you also got to factor in the track meet element of it. So like when you're comparing these defensive stats, like they may not necessarily worry as much about the defense because they know their offense is going to outscore everybody, and that kind of underscores the big picture, philosophy and all that kind of stuff that I've heard people talking about. And Dog Post has frankly been, I mean, they've had some hot takes, in my opinion, about Kirby Smart and Todd Monken right now, but talking about the philosophy that Kirby needs to. There's questions all of a sudden for Kirby Smart, even though he's dominated this series since he's been there. So we lost one, hobbling in on defense, no quarterback, which I guess technically those questions are certainly valid for Kirby, but like it is what it is, and I think it's just one of those coaching scenarios where we just got to get past it. Get to get to getting the stud quarterback that we got coming in. Maybe JT Daniels gets healthy at some point.
He's a unicorn. He doesn't really exist.
Yeah, I mean, clearly he doesn't exist, but like, he's definitely, I don't know. He must be hurt. Is kind of what I've decided, because otherwise,
I agree.
Otherwise, he would be out there. And apparently, that surgery that had in January was not an insignificant kind of situation, because I do feel like that if you take that into context and the fact that he's not seeing the field, like his injury must have been pretty substantial. His initial injury must have been pretty substantial.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
So anyway, welcome. I for one welcome our new triple option overlords, Jim.
Hey, I mean, again, me like silly fan stuff. I'm like, maybe we should just run the wild dog and let James Cook be the quarterback.
That's what I said. Like throw a running back there, an extra running back, or throw an extra lineman out there, and let's get after it.
Yeah. You want more touches for James Cook, and there's a way to definitely do
it. Has he ever played quarterback?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm like, I seriously yesterday I was like, I wonder what kind of arm James Cook has. Like, can he throw the ball?
or any of the other like Burton or anybody else out there like that's super fast on the squad. One guy that I don't think that we saw, and I don't know that I was necessarily super confident, was what was it, Arian Smith? I can't remember. I'm blanking on his name, but the wide receiver that was hurt that suddenly made the travel squad. He didn't. I don't think we saw him.
So I see he's on the participation chart.
Really?
But this doesn't have like snap count. So it's got him on there, but it's also got Trey Blunt, and I don't remember seeing Trey Blunt.
Huh.
So who knows? Maybe it was late in the game. Or you know what? It could have been on special teams or something. I don't remember seeing him because this what I'm looking at doesn't break that down.
It seems odd if he was on special teams, because we'd figure that he would probably have been one of the ones receiving, but maybe not. I don't know. That was the one thing that he was supposed to bring to the table, was this like otherworldly elite, literal track meet star speed.
Right. Yeah. Who knows?
All right. Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we just need to move on. I'm ready to move on from future quarterback conversations, and this season is a throwaway season for eligibility purposes for everyone, and I just assume we forgot that it ever happened. But at least we're watching football. At least we're getting something to distract us from whatever ails you in the world.
Yeah, dude, I agree. I know, this is one of those times where I lied to myself. Like I said something and I didn't do it. Like after Arkansas game, I remember I was texting my dad and saying like, all right, well, it looks like we're not what I thought we were. I just need to enjoy the fact that we have football and enjoy every minute that I get to watch and just not worry about things. And of course, I fell back into my trap of, Oh no, man, the mailman, like he's awesome, and but you know what? So now I'm going to heed my own advice, and I still get to watch the dogs play on Saturday, and like at least I woke up today a dog and not a gator, and I'll take that. So
Is
there's
this
always that.
is this what South Carolina fans feel like?
Oh, I could go ask my neighbor. We'll go, maybe I have to have him on the podcast.
We got them coming up too, which
We
historically
do.
Muschamp's been a problem for Smart too. So there's no telling what we got in store for us. Buckle up, Bulldog fans.
Well, they're not looking too hot. We may be facing like interim head coach Mike Bobo at that point. We'll see.
Right. That's funny.
So, all right, man. Hey, enjoy soccer. Hope soccer goes well.
Yeah, thanks. We're actually almost there. We were doing the call while I was driving, so almost there.
Cool. All right, man. Well, we'll talk soon. We'll get a look at Missouri. I don't think I have anything else to say.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.